Hey guys, the first video that I'm doing here, and bounce over Baghdad. But this is the long-awaited Wing Chun versus Kicks Part 2. What a jerk. I'm sorry, it's actually Wing Chun versus Grappling Part 2. Alright, anyway, what I want to cover today is a little bit of an addition to the video we did a few weeks ago called Wasteful Chi Sao. What Sifu Ed had talked about was working on one specific thing during your Chi Sao sessions. A lot of times Wing Chun, you practice that by yourself. So you're practicing the forms, things like single man techniques, the punch, the stance. But the thing is, you don't have a lot of time to work with a partner. And so in those times where they're very few and far between, you need to really take advantage of those sessions. So what Sifu Ed had talked about in Wasteful Chi Sao was that, one, you can focus on maintaining your center. So keeping your stance vertical. The second thing he spoke about was having the proper attack range, making sure that the arm is bent in that V shape and not overextending or not trying to look for cheap hits. And then the final thing that he discussed was focusing solely on blocking and covering your center. And those are all great things that you have to keep focus on. What I wanted to add to this was that there were some other things that I've worked on in my practice when I'm rolling with other students. So the first thing that I want to look at is target point. Okay? One of the main developments that you're working on is covering your center when you're blocking. But in Chi Sao, what often happens is we roll, and if Sifu takes me offline, right there I'm opened up and I have no target point. I'm actually beyond his shoulders. Okay? So when you work on this specific development here, he comes in and tries to do an attack or moves me off. I want to make sure that my guns, my triangle, is focused at his center. He moves again, right here, aimed at his center. Okay? So you want to make sure that you are focusing constantly on the target. Oftentimes what you'll see with certain different branches of Wing Chun is that if the center line is occupied, so if Sifu Ed has his guard up, and the center line is occupied, a lot of times what they'll say is, well then, if you can't go straight through the center, then you go off to the side. Well, that goes against all Wing Chun principles, okay? Because you are moving off the center and coming right back in. That's not a direct line, okay? So again, when you're working in Chi Sao, one thing that you can think about or focus on is making sure that your triangle is always aimed at your partner's center. Now the second thing that I had in mind was staying connected. This isn't a, ad for AT&T, but what it is that a lot of times in Chi Sao, what happens is people tend to just go with their partner wherever they're going. So if Sifu Ed is moving around, all right, what you see right here is gapping, and that means that in every motion, even just in single stick, you move, but and you may not be able to see it on the video, but what happens is I'm not totally connected to my partner. What's happening is there's, as we've described before in videos, you might start at 5 pounds, but as you transition to the next motion, it goes to 3 or 2, and then you go back to 5. All right? You want to maintain that connection, maintain that control of the point throughout every single motion. So wherever he goes, this is 5 pounds that we're working with, and he starts moving around. Right there, I'm trying to stay connected to him and keep that pressure at the point consistent through every single motion. The final thing that I wanted to bring up was balancing the triangle, balancing both arms. Your arms function together. All right. A lot of times, what happens is people will do their attacks or do their blocks one-sided, and what that ultimately leads to is a lot of muscling. If I'm working with my partner and I'm going in for an attack, and we're going to stick here with some of the basic attacks. So right now, palm strike. I go in for the palm strike. All right. What happens is there's actually nothing going on over here. It's all one-sided. So I'm actually muscling this right hand, this palm strike. If he presses against with his bong, my futsal collapses. What I want to make sure that I'm doing is when I go in for that attack, there's an equal amount of balance right here between both arms. All right, so that if he comes in with a little bit more force, I'm controlling that. My one side of the triangle doesn't collapse. If that happens, then the entire shield is basically useless. We're not talking adamantium or vibranium. We're talking about styrofoam. Okay. So, again, just to reiterate what we've been talking about and what we discussed in Wasteful Chisao, is that you can't multitask, at least not at this beginner developmental stage. All right. You can only focus on one idea at a time, and that's really similar to what you work on in the first form. One single motion, one single idea at one time. And that you need to take that principle and move that into something like Chisao, which is going to involve a lot of different principles, a lot of different things such as structure and timing and positioning. You know, all the different things that we've talked about in other videos. It's not easy to develop that focus, but with more practice, with more awareness, you'll be able to develop your Chisao skills and everything else in Wing Chun to a much higher level. So hopefully that's informative for you guys, and good luck in your practice. See you next time.
Very good.